One word changed everything. When brilliant interpreter Adanna collapses at an elite international gala, she awakens in the arms of danger itself, Minho, the ruthless leader of the Black Phoenix clan. His whispered claim, ours, seals her fate in a world of blood, power, and deadly secrets. But why was she poisoned? What did her father hide in encrypted journals that made her a target for assassination? As rival syndicates hunt her for the codes only she can break, Adanna discovers she's not just a victim, she's the key to destroying an international criminal empire. Between betrayal and passion, between survival and surrender, one question remains. In a world where loyalty is bought with blood, can love be the deadliest weapon of all? Subscribe now and hit that like button, because this story will leave you breathless. The champagne flute slipped from Adanna's fingers before she even registered the numbness spreading through her hand. The crystal shattered against marble, the sound swallowed by the symphony of conversation, laughter, and clinking glasses that filled the grand ballroom. She blinked, trying to focus on the French diplomat whose words she'd been translating just seconds ago, but his face blurred into watercolor streaks of pink and beige. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Mademoiselle, are you quite all right? The diplomat's voice sounded distant, as if she were hearing him from underwater. Adanna opened her mouth to respond, to apologize, to say something, anything, but her tongue felt thick and uncooperative. The room tilted violently to the left, and she stumbled, her hand shooting out to grip the edge of a nearby table. The white tablecloth bunched under her fingers as she tried to steady herself, but her legs were betraying her, turning to liquid beneath her designer gown. The gala had been spectacular just moments ago. She'd been working the room with her usual confidence, moving seamlessly between clusters of international guests, her brain switching effortlessly from English to French to Mandarin to Korean. It was what she did best, bridging language gaps, making connections, being invaluable. The organizers had paid her handsomely to be here tonight, interpreting for business magnates and politicians at this exclusive charity event in Seoul's most prestigious hotel. But now the opulent chandeliers above were spinning, their crystal teardrops creating kaleidoscope patterns that made her stomach heave. The faces around her multiplied and merged, concerned expressions bleeding into one another. She heard gasps, felt hands reaching for her, but couldn't distinguish one person from another. Someone call a doctor. Is she having a seizure? Give her space. The voices cascaded over her in waves as her knees finally buckled. She was falling, the geometric patterns of the marble floor rushing up to meet her face, and she couldn't even lift her arms to break the impact. Time seemed to slow, each millisecond stretching into eternity as gravity pulled her down. Then, impossibly, she stopped falling. Strong arms caught her mid-descent, cradling her against a solid chest with a gentleness that contradicted the steel-like strength she could feel in those muscles. Through her fading vision, she glimpsed a face, sharp jawline, dark eyes that held an intensity that should have frightened her but instead felt strangely anchoring, black hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. She'd seen him earlier, had felt his eyes on her from the moment she'd entered the ballroom. He'd been standing on the second-floor balcony, watching the crowd below with the stillness of a predator observing prey. Several men in dark suits had flanked him, but he'd been alone in his authority, separate from the party, even while physically present. She felt the weight of his gaze multiple times throughout the evening, turning to catch glimpses of him studying her with an attention that had made her skin prickle with awareness. Now he held her as if she weighed nothing, as if catching collapsing women was something he did regularly. His face was close to hers, those dark eyes scanning her features with an intensity that penetrated even through her deteriorating consciousness. His lips moved, and she strained to hear him over the rushing sound in her ears. Ours! That single word, spoken in a low voice that vibrated through her chest, was the last thing she heard before darkness swallowed her completely. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments. First, the softness beneath her, silk sheets, she realized, nothing like the hospital gurney she might have expected. Then the scent, something clean and masculine, cedar and something else she couldn't identify. Finally, the light, muted and golden, filtering through what sounded like floor-to-ceiling windows based on the echo of the space. Adanna's eyes fluttered open, her vision still slightly blurred but functional. She was staring at an unfamiliar ceiling, modern and minimalist, with recessed lighting that created a soft ambience. Slowly, carefully, she turned her head to take in her surroundings. The room was enormous, clearly part of a high-end penthouse. Contemporary furniture in blacks and grays created a masculine aesthetic, while one wall was entirely glass, offering a breathtaking view of Seoul's glittering skyline. It was nighttime still, or perhaps night again. She had no idea how long she'd been unconscious. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as dizziness washed over her. A hand pressed gently but firmly against her shoulder, easing her back down. Don't move too quickly. The antidote works fast, but you'll feel disoriented for a few more hours. That voice. She knew that voice. Adanna turned her head to find him sitting in a chair beside the bed, his posture relaxed but his gaze alert. The man who'd caught her. Up close and in better lighting, he was even more striking than she'd realized, late 20s or early 30s, with features that spoke of Korean heritage but carried something else too, something that made his beauty almost dangerous. He wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms, the top 2 buttons undone. He looked like he'd been sitting there for some time. "Who are you?" Her voice came out raspy, and she coughed, trying to clear her throat. He reached for a glass of water on the nightstand and handed it to her, supporting her shoulders as she drank. The gesture was oddly intimate, and she found herself acutely aware of the warmth of his hand through the thin fabric of whatever she was wearing. She glanced down and realized with a jolt that she was no longer in her gala dress, but in an oversized silk shirt that definitely wasn't hers. "My name is Kang Minho," he said, his English perfect but accented. "And before you ask, one of my female associates changed your clothes. Your dress is being cleaned. Where am I? What happened?" The questions tumbled out as memory came flooding back. The gala, the dizziness, the fall. "You said something about an antidote?" Minho leaned back in his chair, studying her with those intense dark eyes. "You're in my home. You were poisoned tonight at the gala. A neurotoxin, administered through your champagne glass. Without intervention, you would have died within 20 minutes. The words hit her like a physical blow. Poisoned. Someone had tried to kill her. That's impossible. Why would anyone want to? I'm just an interpreter. I don't. You're Adanna Okafor, he interrupted, his pronunciation of her Nigerian name flawless. 28 years old, multilingual interpreter specializing in business and diplomatic translation. You speak 7 languages fluently. Your father was Dr. Chukwuma Okafor, professor of linguistics and international relations, died 3 years ago in what was ruled a car accident in Lagos. Ice flooded Adanna's veins. How do you know all that? Who are you really? Minho stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows with his hands in his pockets. The city lights cast his profile in sharp relief as he spoke. I am the leader of the Black Phoenix clan. We're what you might call a syndicate, though I prefer to think of us as a family business. A syndicate? Adanna's voice was flat. You mean the Mafia? He turned to face her, and something that might have been amusement flickered across his features. That's the Western term, yes. We operate primarily in East Asia, though our reach extends to several continents. We handle various enterprises, some legal, some less so. And you're telling me this why? Aren't crime bosses supposed to keep their identities secret? Despite her fear, Adanna's mind was working, processing, trying to make sense of this impossible situation. Because you're already involved, whether you know it or not. And because... He paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. Because when I declared you as ours, I made a claim that binds both of us. You deserve to know what that means. That word... Adanna pushed herself up on her elbows, ignoring the lingering dizziness. You said ours when you caught me. What does that mean? Minho crossed back to the chair and sat, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. In the Black Phoenix clan, there's an old tradition. When the boss personally saves someone's life, that person becomes clan family. They fall under our permanent protection. They become ours. So I'm what? Your property now. Anger flared through her fear. No. His answer was immediate and firm. You're under protection. There's a difference. But I won't lie to you, Adanna. That protection comes with complications. It also comes with questions. Starting with why someone wanted you dead badly enough to poison you at a public event. I told you I'm nobody. I translate at corporate events and conferences. I don't know any secrets or... Your father did. Minho pulled out a tablet from the side table and tapped the screen before handing it to her. This was recovered from Red Serpent Syndicate Communications 2 weeks ago. Adanna took the tablet with shaking hands. On the screen was a list of names, each with a photograph beside it. Her own face stared back at her from the third entry, along with her full name, address, and known work schedule. A red X marked through several names above hers. Next to her name was a single word in red, priority. What is this? Her voice was barely a whisper. An assassination list. The Red Serpents are a rival organization, primarily operating out of China but with reach throughout Asia and Africa. They've been systematically eliminating everyone on this list for the past 6 months. You were next. Adanna scrolled through the names, her heart pounding. She didn't recognize most of them, but a few looked familiar. A journalist, a former government official, a professor. But why? What do these people have in common? That's what I'm trying to understand. But I have a theory. Minho stood and walked to a desk in the corner, returning with a slim folder. These people all had connections to your father's research. Some were colleagues, some were his students, some were people he interviewed for his work on international criminal networks. The folder landed in her lap, and Adanna opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were photocopies of her father's published papers, articles about his research, and her breath caught, photographs of the journals. The encrypted journals she'd found in his office after his death, filled with symbols and notations she'd never been able to decipher. How did you get pictures of these? I have extensive resources, and I've been investigating the Red Serpents for years. When your name appeared on that list, I started digging into your background. Your father's work caught my attention. His work was academic, theoretical. He studied language patterns in criminal organizations, but it was all published research, nothing classified or... Nothing published, no. Minho's eyes held hers. But what about what he didn't publish? What about those encrypted journals you inherited? The ones you've kept locked in a safe deposit box in Lagos? Adanna felt her face go pale. How could he possibly know about those? She'd never told anyone about them, had barely looked at them herself because they were too painful, too full of her father's handwriting and his obsessive last months before his death. My father was paranoid toward the end, she said slowly. He thought people were following him, that his research had uncovered something dangerous. We thought it was just stress, maybe early-onset dementia. The car accident, we thought it was just an accident. I don't believe in accidents, Minho said softly. And neither should you anymore. Someone poisoned you tonight because of what your father knew and what they think you might know or be able to figure out. Those journals contain something worth killing for. But I don't know what's in them. I can't read his encryption. I tried after he died, but the symbols are his own invention, mixing different alphabets, and... She stopped, realization dawning. Wait, that's why you saved me. Not because of some tradition. You need me to decrypt those journals. Something flickered across Minho's face, respect, perhaps, for her quick understanding. I saved you because you were dying in front of me, and I don't let innocent people die when I can prevent it. The journals are relevant, yes, but that's not why I caught you. Then why? He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze holding hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Because the moment I saw you enter that barroom tonight, I felt something I've never felt before. Recognition, maybe. Connection. I don't know what to call it. But when you started falling, my body moved before my mind could think. And when I said ours, it wasn't just tradition speaking. The air between them felt charged with something electric and dangerous. Adanna's heart was racing, and she wasn't sure if it was from the revelation about her father or from the way Minho was looking at her. That's insane, she whispered. You don't know me. No, he agreed. Not yet, but I'm going to. Because whether you like it or not, Adanna, you're at the center of something much bigger than either of us. The Red Serpents won't stop coming for you. And now that I've claimed protection over you, they'll come harder, faster to spite me. Your only chance of survival is to stay under my protection and help me figure out what your father discovered that's worth all these deaths. And if I refuse, if I want to go home, get on a plane back to Lagos, then you'll be dead within a week, maybe days. His voice was matter-of-fact, not cruel. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm telling you the reality. You saw that list. Those people are dead, Adanna. All of them. You're alive right now only because I happened to be at that gala, only because I was watching you specifically, because I'd learned your name was on that list 2 days ago. Wait! She sat up fully now, ignoring the swimming sensation in her head. You knew I was in danger? You were there watching me? Why didn't you warn me? I tried to determine the threat level first. I had my people monitoring the event, watching for Red Serpent operatives. But they were cleverer than I anticipated. The poison was administered by someone we didn't flag as dangerous. Who? Minho's jaw tightened. The woman who invited you to the gala in the first place. Your friend and former colleague, Sarah Chun. The name hit Adanna like a punch to the gut. Sarah. Sweet, ambitious Sarah who'd gotten her the interpreter job for tonight, who'd been so excited to reconnect after 2 years of minimal contact. Sarah who'd handed her that glass of champagne personally, who'd insisted she try it because it was the good stuff. No. Adanna shook her head violently. Sarah wouldn't. We were friends. She's a translator, too. She's not involved in anything criminal. She sold you out for $50,000 and a guarantee that her own name would be removed from the Red Serpent's list. Minho pulled up another file on his tablet, showing bank transfer records and encrypted messages. She's been feeding them information on your whereabouts for 3 weeks. Tonight was supposed to be the completion of her contract. Adanna felt tears burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Where is she now? My people have her. She's being questioned. If you want to speak to her yourself. No. The word came out harsh. I don't want to see her. I just want. She trailed off, not even sure what she wanted anymore. Her entire world had been turned inside out in the space of a few hours. Minho stood and moved to the door. I'll have food brought up. You need to eat something to counteract the effects of the poison. In the morning, when you're stronger, we'll talk more about what comes next. For now, you're safe here. I have guards posted throughout the building, and no one enters this penthouse without my permission. Minho! She stopped him as he reached the door. He turned, one eyebrow raised in question. Why did you really save me? And don't give me that tradition explanation. He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When I figure that out myself, you'll be the first to know. Rest now, Adanna. We have a long road ahead. Then he was gone, the door clicking softly shut behind him, leaving her alone in his bedroom with her racing thoughts and the terrifying knowledge that her life would never be the same. The next morning arrived with sunlight streaming through those massive windows, warming Adanna's face until she woke. For a blissful moment, she thought everything had been a nightmare. Poison, Mafia bosses, assassination lists. Then she opened her eyes to the unfamiliar penthouse, and reality crashed back over her. She sat up slowly, relieved to find that the dizziness had finally passed. On the nightstand was a tray with breakfast, fresh fruit, toast, eggs, coffee, still warm, which meant someone had brought it while she slept. The thought of strangers entering the room while she was unconscious should have frightened her, but somehow she felt safe, protected, just as Minho had promised. Next to the tray was a neat stack of clothes in what looked like her size, along with a note in precise handwriting. These should fit. Bathroom through the door on the left. Take your time. Adanna ate mechanically, her mind churning through everything Minho had told her. Her father, the journals, Sarah's betrayal, the assassination list. It was too much, too overwhelming. She was just an interpreter, had spent her whole life building a safe, predictable career precisely because she'd grown up watching her father become increasingly paranoid and obsessed with his research. She'd promised herself she'd never go down that path. Now it seemed that path had come for her anyway. After showering and dressing in the provided clothes, black jeans and a soft gray sweater that fit perfectly, she emerged from the bedroom to find the penthouse even more impressive in daylight. The main living area was enormous, with that same minimalist aesthetic, but punctuated by surprising touches. A wall of books in multiple languages, artwork that looked both expensive and personal, a piano in one corner. Minho sat at the dining table with a laptop, dressed in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater, his hair slightly damp as if he'd also recently showered. He looked up as she approached, his gaze sweeping over her in a way that made her suddenly conscious of how the clothes hugged her body. You look better. How do you feel? Like my life is a nightmare. She sat across from him, folding her arms. But physically fine. Good. Coffee. He gestured to a French press on the table. Yes. Please. She poured herself a cup, adding sugar with hands that were steadier than she expected. So what happens now? You said we'd talk this morning. Now we figure out what your father discovered. Minho turned the laptop to face her. On the screen were photographs of journal pages. Her father's journals, the encrypted ones. I need you to look at these. Really look at them. You're a linguist like your father. You see patterns in language that other people miss. That's why you're so good at your job. Adanna pulled the laptop closer, studying the pages. They were exactly as she remembered, dense with symbols that looked like a mashup of different alphabets. Cyrillic, Greek, mathematical notation, custom glyphs her father had invented. She'd looked at these pages dozens of times after his death and seen only chaos. But now, with Minho's words echoing in her mind, you see patterns, she forced herself to look differently. Not at individual symbols, but at the structure. The spacing. The repetition. There's a rhythm to it, she murmured, almost to herself. See how certain clusters repeat every few lines? And these marks here. She pointed to small dots and dashes above some symbols. Those might be tone markers, like in Vietnamese or Mandarin. He's mixing linguistic systems, creating layers. Can you decode it? Maybe. Probably. It'll take time. She looked up at him. But I need the actual journals, not photographs. I need to see his handwriting up close, see if there are impressions on the pages from previous entries, look for notes he might have made in the margins. The journals are in Lagos. Yes. Then we'll have to go get them. Minho said it as if suggesting a trip to the corner store. We? No. If these things are as dangerous as you say, I'm not leading you straight to them. How do I know you're not just another criminal organization trying to get whatever information my father had? You don't, Minho admitted. You have to trust me. Trust you? I've known you for less than 12 hours, and in those 12 hours, I've saved your life and kept you safe from people who want you dead. What more do you need? Adanna stood abruptly, pacing to the windows. The city stretched out below, massive and indifferent. I need to understand what's happening. I need to know why my father, who was just an academic, just a professor who loved languages and puzzles, ended up with information worth killing for. I need to know if his death really was murder, not an accident. I need, her voice cracked, and she pressed her palms against the cool glass. She felt rather than heard Minho approach. He stopped a few feet behind her, giving her space but making his presence known. I can help you find those answers, he said quietly. But I won't lie to you about the cost. Once you start down this path, there's no going back to your normal life. The Red Serpents know you're alive. By now they'll know their assassination attempt failed. They'll be regrouping, planning another attempt. And they'll be more careful next time. So I'm supposed to what? Hide here forever? Become some Mafia princess locked in a tower? No. There was steel in his voice now. You're supposed to fight back. You're supposed to use that brilliant mind of yours to decode what your father left behind, expose whatever truth he died protecting, and destroy the people who killed him and tried to kill you. And I'm supposed to keep you alive while you do it. Adanna turned to face him, and was struck by how close he was. This close, she could see flecks of amber in his dark eyes, could smell that cedar scent she'd noticed earlier. Why would you do that? What do you get out of this? The Red Serpents have been a thorn in my side for years. If your father's information can damage them, that serves my interests. But also, he paused, seeming to wrestle with something internal. I told you last night I felt something when I saw you. I wasn't lying. I don't understand it, and I don't like not understanding things. But every instinct I have is telling me that you're important, that protecting you matters in ways I can't explain yet. That's insane. Most of the best things are. A hint of a smile played at his lips. Look, Adanna, I'm not asking you to trust me completely. I'm asking you to trust that our interests align right now. You want answers about your father. I want to damage the Red Serpents. Working together serves us both. She studied his face, looking for deception and finding only intensity. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but I have conditions. First, I want to know everything you know about my father's death. Real evidence, not speculation. Second, When we decode these journals, I decide what happens with the information, not you. And third, she met his eyes directly, you tell me the truth about what ours really means in your organization. All of it. Minho's expression shifted into something that might have been respect. Agreed? To all three. But I have a condition too. What? You don't leave this penthouse without security. You don't go anywhere without telling me. And if I say something's too dangerous, you listen. I can't protect you if you're reckless. I'm not a child. No. But you're also not trained for this world. I am. His voice softened slightly. Let me do what I'm good at, Adanna. Let me keep you safe while you do what you're good at. Deal. She extended her hand. Deal. His hand enveloped hers, warm and calloused and strong. The handshake lasted a moment longer than necessary, both of them seeming reluctant to break the contact. When they finally did, Adanna felt oddly cold. Right, Minho said, his voice slightly rougher than before. Let's start with what I know about your father. But you should sit down. Some of this won't be easy to hear. They moved back to the dining table, and Minho pulled up file after file on his laptop. Adanna's hands clenched into fists as she read through reports, looked at photographs, reviewed evidence that painted a very different picture of her father's final months than what she'd known. Dr. Chukwuma Okafor hadn't just been researching criminal organizations, he'd been investigating them actively. He'd made contact with informants, had traveled to multiple countries following leads, had compiled evidence of a massive international network that connected crime syndicates across Asia and Africa in ways no one had previously documented. The car accident, Minho said, pulling up police reports and photographs that made Adanna's stomach turn, was staged to look mechanical, brake failure. But see these marks on the brake line? Those are from wire cutters, not wear and tear. The police didn't catch that. The police in that district are on the Red Serpent's payroll. The investigation was deliberately superficial. Adanna felt tears burning behind her eyes, but forced them back. She'd cried enough when her father died. Now was the time for anger, for action. What else? Your father was getting close to exposing the network structure. See these names? Minho highlighted a list in one of the files. These are people he identified as key players, including someone he called the architect. Someone who sits at the center of the web, coordinating operations across continents. Did he ever identify who the architect is? Not in any files I've found. But I think that information is in the encrypted journals. That's why the Red Serpents want them destroyed and why they want you dead. You're the only person with both the journals and the linguistic expertise to decode them. So my father died for this. And now they want to kill me, to bury it forever. The weight of it settled over Adanna like a physical thing. Yes, but here's what they didn't anticipate. Minho leaned forward, his eyes intense. They didn't anticipate you having me as an ally. They didn't anticipate the Black Phoenix clan getting involved. And they certainly didn't anticipate that you'd be brave enough to fight back. How do you know I'm brave? Maybe I'll just fall apart. You haven't yet. Most people would have broken down completely by now. You're scared, I can see that. But you're also thinking, planning, pushing through the fear. That's courage, Adanna. That's exactly what we need. Before she could respond, Minho's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. My men have finished questioning Sarah Chun. Do you want to hear what she said? Adanna's jaw tightened. Yes. Minho put the phone on speaker. A man's voice came through, speaking in Korean. Minho translated smoothly. She's admitted to poisoning you on orders from Red Serpent operatives. She was recruited 3 months ago when they threatened to kill her family. They told her you were part of a criminal organization, that taking you out was actually helping law enforcement. She believed that. Adanna couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. She chose to believe it because it let her justify what she was doing. People tell themselves whatever they need to sleep at night. Minho listened to more Korean, then continued translating. She says the Red Serpents are planning to move on your apartment in Lagos within 48 hours to retrieve the journals themselves. They have someone on the inside at your bank who can access your safe deposit box. What? Adanna shot to her feet. We need to get there first. Now. Already arranging it. My plane will be ready in 3 hours. We'll fly to Lagos, retrieve the journals, and be back before they know what happened. Just like that. You have a plane. Minho's lips quirked. I have several planes. and contacts in Lagos who will facilitate our entry and exit discreetly. This is what I do, Adanna. Trust me. Those words again. Trust me. 3 hours ago, she wouldn't have. But something had shifted. Maybe it was the evidence he'd shown her. Maybe it was the straightforward way he dealt with her. Or maybe it was just desperation. Whatever it was, Adanna found herself nodding. Okay, let's go get my father's journals. And then let's figure out what he died to protect. Minho smiled. A real smile this time, transforming his stern features into something almost beautiful. That's my girl. Now you should pack light. We'll only be on the ground in Lagos for a few hours. And Adanna, he caught her arm gently as she turned to go. Thank you for trusting me. I know it's not easy. Thank you for saving my life, she replied softly. Even if it was because of some mysterious instinct you don't understand. Maybe by the time this is over, we'll both understand it. Their eyes held for a long moment, something electric passing between them. Then Adanna pulled away, her heart hammering, and went to prepare for a journey that would change everything. If you're hooked on Adanna and Minho's dangerous romance, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the next part. Drop a comment telling us what you think. Will Adanna crack her father's code? Can she really trust Minho? Stay tuned.